Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you're probably wondering, where the heck am I? Well friends, I'm at camp. And because we're in the middle of summer, and I'm trying to film this during the day, I have some limitations. One of the limitations is that I'm filming in my classroom, and this is the cleanest portion of the classroom that I could find. It's not really my classroom, actually. This is somebody else's classroom, and so I'm not really supposed to touch much in here as I'm teaching the camp. So this is the best I could find. The lighting is dark, I know that. Please be patient with me. The sound is probably also strange. I would love to show you the outside. Let me show you a couple of pictures of the outside of this building. I'll show them to you now. The outside of this building is beautiful, it's gorgeous, and I wish that I could be using that as the background. But unfortunately, it's really, really hot outside. So I'm inside. So let's see what we've got here. Friends, you probably already know that this is my transition into my deep dive into the Tarot Thoth, to the Thoth Tarot system. And I'm using 3 decks here by the same creator, by Burton. And before I show you the deck, before I show you the decks, plural, let me just give you a quick idea of where we're headed. I've chosen a spread that is large, but I think we'll be able to read it fairly quickly because it's not the continental tarot system, and I think there's a way to move through this spread fairly smoothly and a little quicker than usual. Let's see if I'm lying or if I'm telling the truth. And actually, I'm pretty surprised by what I see in this week's spread. I see a lot of love. I see a lot of change. And maybe we're all going through some of that right now. Maybe we're all going through some metamorphosis in the way we love, in the people we love, in the way we love ourselves perhaps, in the way we are willing to accept love. So I really see love as a core message for this week's spread. And I don't usually point to love in my weekly readings because the question I always ask is, how can we live life more intentionally in the coming week? And apparently, the way we can live life more intentionally in the coming week is to focus on love in one or many of its diverse aspects. Does that make sense to you? When you think of love, who do you love? What is love to you? Have you thought of an answer? Have you thought of a response? Did you get a hit when I asked that question? If you did, I'd like you to carry that feeling, that knowledge, that understanding with you as we read this spread together. And every time I mention the word love, bring that idea, that concept, that feeling with you into the rest of the spread. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. Because for me, it could be loving another person. For you, it could be the way you love yourself. For your friend who is sitting there with you, maybe, it could be the relationship with their I don't like higher self, frankly, their eternal nature. Why don't I like the word higher self? Ask me in the comments below and I'll freely give you my feelings on that idea of there being a higher self. But I prefer eternal nature. So the eternal natures that we are. Maybe it's our relationship with that. Maybe it's our relationship with the divine. Maybe it's our relationship with our inner child. It could be anything. When you thought of love, what did that spark for you? Carry that into the spread with us, okay? So friends, what am I going to do? As usual, I'm going to show you the whole spread, and then we're going to break it down into its parts and talk about the parts. So friends, here's the whole spread. Friends, what do you think of this spread? Does it look like a monster? Does it look like a monstrosity? Well, friends, if you're curious about the spread itself, I have done a walkthrough of this spread, and I'll put a card up here for you to go and take a look at that walkthrough. It's not the deepest walkthrough of this spread possible because this spread is actually very deep, very intense, and has a lot of moving parts, and we won't touch on all of the moving parts that there could be. But I am going to read it in a very logical way. The central set of cards. Did you notice that there were 3 different decks at play here? And each one of those decks is in each one of the 5 spots of the spread. The central spread had cards from 3 different decks. The upper right had cards from 3 different decks, and then going around. So we'll start from the center. The center is the current situation. Now, upper right gives us the information about the direction we will progress in if we just let things run its course. The upper left-hand corner is the alternate path that we can choose if we decide to intervene in our own situation. The lower left is the set of cards that points to our challenges, and those challenges could be either positive or negative. Positive challenge is something we could strive for, something we could reach for. The negative challenge would be the things that are standing in our way, that are blocking us, that could knock us off of our course. And then in the lower right, we had 3 cards that give us the message from the divine. Now, in each of those 3 cards, there is the center card, which is the main message. The card on the left modifies the central card, and the card on the right modifies those 2. The central card is the card from a somewhat Thoth-flavored deck. The card on the left is a card that is based on a more Smith-Waite system. And then the card on the right is one from the Oracle deck, all by the same creator. And if you want to see the name of the creator, the names of the decks, there will be a short clip at the end of this video that gives you those bits of information. There will also be links in the description box below to go to Kelly Burton's place of business and purchase these decks. They're just gorgeous, and they're not my typical style, but as I move into my Thoth deep dive year, I'm going to be incorporating a couple of more collage decks. Just a heads up. Okay, so friends, you saw the spread. I gave you basically the rudimentary way we're going to read it. And so let's move right in. Let's zoom into the central section of the spread. Here we go. You saw that we got 3 cards here, of course, and the central card was the Lover's card. So this is really the card that gives us the core message of this week's spread. And on the left of the Lover's card, we have the Emperor. We've got a lot of majors in this week's spread. Did you notice that? So we have the Emperor to the left, and then to the right, we have an Oracle card for sensuality, which is interesting because one would often think of sensuality as more of an Empress attribute. Did you notice the pomegranate on there? The pomegranate can also be associated with both the Empress and the High Priestess. So it's interesting to have sensuality here, paired with the Emperor, where we usually think of rams and Mars and all of that kind of stuff, right? But we're starting with the Lovers in the center. And let me show you that card again, right here. It's a beautiful card. I don't really have a good copy of the card that I can look at while I show you this, but from my memory, there are 2 dancing figures there. There's a Cupid up on top that has bee wings. Do you notice those bee wings? And this card is pointing towards Gemini, yeah, which is the domicile of Mercury, from which mutable heirs, vital attributes enter our world. Yeah, we do have Mercury in Gemini here, and Gemini being the central zodiacal attribute of this card. Beautiful card. There's also that, oh, how could I forget the flowers? The large flower down there at the corner. There's a smaller flower at the top. And basically, Cupid up here is the bee for this deck. Yeah, there are bees throughout all of these decks. This set of decks is all bee-oriented. Do you like bees? Love bees. And that's why I wanted to use these decks during a summer month. And having these decks as my transition between the Continental Tarot system and the Thoth system just seemed like a natural, no-brainer choice selection. And speaking of selections, a lot of times we think of the idea of choice and selection when we come to the Lover's card, right? Now, the Lover's card being card number 6. Okay, let me rephrase this. Because this card, this deck, comes from the tradition of the Order of the Golden Dawn. Although it isn't card 1, the Fool is assigned with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Now, the Continental Tarot system, I believe more correctly, it's just my own personal opinion, don't jump on me, but I believe more correctly, the Continental Tarot system assigns the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which is the number 1, with card number 1, which is the Magician, and then follows through. The Order of the Golden Dawn, Smith-Waite, Crowley's Thoth, both of those assign number 1, Aleph, to 0, the Fool. So, working our way through, the Lovers is assigned to Zayin in this system. And yes, I call it a system because it's different. It is very different to me. And so, yes, we have Gemini, which is the domicile of Mercury, but we also have the Hebrew letter Zayin. Now, I'm not saying that the system is wrong. If I thought it was absolutely wrong, I wouldn't be playing with it now, right? It's just different. And I believe it makes more sense to use the continental associations, but I'm going to explore the new ones, or the ones that are new to me. Though I've been reading with the Smith-Waite for quite a while, I haven't really been paying much attention to those things. Now I'm paying attention, and we're going to explore those things in these decks and with the Thoth deep dive. So again, backtracking to Zayin being the Hebrew letter associated with the Lover's card. Now Zayin is sustenance, yeah, the things that feed us. That could make sense for love, yeah, nourishment. It's also a weapon, kind of like the weapon that Cupid there is holding in his, her, or their hands. But Zayin is a weapon of a double-edged sword. It can cut both ways. And I guess Gemini is also like a double-edged sword, right? The mind in Gemini, being an immature mind, relatively immature mind, can cut both ways as well. We also have the rune of Gebel, which is the rune of partnership. So I'm matching the runes to the Hebrew letters. Yeah? So because it's Zayin, we're giving this card Gebel, partnership, harmony, loyalty, the gift of the divine and divine generosity. Those can work pretty well for a Lover's card, right? So Gebel is also saying to pay attention to relationships, which matches well with the Lover card as well. So what are we starting off with? We're starting off with the idea of partnerships, harmony, that harmony being with the divine and the divine gifts, but also with other. And that harmony can be sustenance, but there is the possibility of it being a double-edged sword. It can cut both ways. There is the potential for a little bit of damage in every relationship. No matter how flowery, beautiful, divinely inspired it seems, there is the potential for harm, right? And so this card in this deck is pointing to things like commitment to move to the next level and accepting what comes with that choice. So we have movement of the next level in commitment in relationship, in our own evolution as well. But because we've got that double-edged sword there, if there is some sharp pointing thing that is also part of that evolution, the consequences of that evolution were also part of our choice. Does that make sense? Sometimes we evolve. Sometimes we evolve and we have to leave people behind. That choice, that part of the choice, is part of our evolution. We may have to leave part of ourselves behind. And that could be part of our evolution that is uncomfortable at best and painful at worst. Right? Also here, love asks for compromise. And because we're here in Gemini, that love could be an internalized love, right? We might be asked to compromise between halves of the brain, between our left and right, between our conscious and unconscious, between our superego and our libido, perhaps even. Yeah? Aspects of self may be asked to compromise and find a beautiful harmony. Cutting away what is not needed is also indicated here, and that is emphasized with Zayin, the Hebrew letter. Learning about self through our intimate relationships is also part of this card. Relationships with other gives us a mirror of who we are being now in this moment. When that relationship is uncomfortable, it's a mirror of what's happening here, right? When that relationship is beautiful, it's flowing, it's a reflection on what is happening here as well. So all of those relationships are part of this card. And that is a mirror, or that is mirrored, I believe, or modified by this card here, which is the Emperor. And we have this beautiful beekeeper holding an Ankh wand. Do you see that? Ankh wand? There's so much detail in this card. I couldn't touch on it all within a reasonable time span, even if I wanted to. The colors, the richness, the power of this image is just intense. Yeah? The beekeeper is holding a smoker here so that the beekeeper is able to calm down his, her, or their subordinates, his, her, or their subjects, right? And the Emperor in this card is associated with Aries, which is the domicile of Mars, from which cardinal fire's vital attributes enter our world. And we're going to be thinking about the elemental dignities. And if that does not make sense to you, elemental dignities, there's a way of looking at the elements of each card and whether they either support each other, they are in conflict with each other, or they have a neutral relationship. And here we started off with Gemini, which is air. And here we have Aries, which is fire. And air and fire are mutually supportive. So this Emperor card, while its cardinal fires and attributes entering our world, the fire in this card is supporting the air, and the air is supporting the fire. Now, we also have He, the Hebrew letter He, which is part of the divine tetragram, and it is the feminine aspect of the divine tetragram. Yeah, the divine tetragram is Yod He, Vav He. Both of those He's, well, especially the first He is feminine. The second He can be androgynous. So we have the He here in the divine tetragram, the creative feminine, which is interesting, associated with the Emperor, where we think of the creative masculine, right? Knowing that whatever kind of body we inhabit, whether we are in male bodies, female bodies, trans bodies, cis bodies, intersex bodies, whatever, we all have a male and a female aspect and an intersex aspect to all of us. We have the full spectrum, the full gamut. And so He is on the more classically feminine, classically receptive, classically energetically negative. Not negative like bad, but negative as opposed to the polar opposite of active positive, of things going out. The negative is things coming in. So it's not good or bad, right? Okay. So the he here is also the creative feminine, which is interesting, being part of Aries and with Mars there. It's also the taking and giving of self, yeah? To look, to reveal, to breathe. Very feminine aspects of our experience in the world. It's also associated with Raido, which is a new way of life, a new perspective. Communication, reconciliation, all things that we would, I think, more commonly associated with the Empress are now associated with the Emperor. So I guess we could think of that as these characteristics, the characteristics of He, the characteristic of Raido, could be balancing out the fire of the king, the Emperor, with Aries and Mars. And so what do we get? We still get the idea of authority. We still get the idea of confidence. We have it all under control. The need to be productive. Now, if perhaps these two cards were elementally in conflict, I would say that these aspects of the Emperor would be to our detriment, could be standing in our way. But because these two are elementally favorable, yeah, they are both supporting each other, our authority in relationship is going to be of benefit. Yeah, our ability to be in control of who we are and our environment is going to be of benefit to whatever relationship it is that you have in the back of your mind for this coming week. And being productive in that relationship will help. Yeah? Our leadership will be of benefit. Whether we, whether we are in male bodies, female bodies, trans bodies, cis bodies, intersex bodies, it doesn't matter. Our leadership in our relationships is going to be of benefit. Now, our vision of the direction we want to go is going to be of benefit. Now, our ability to oversee, to watch over the welfare of those that we are in relationship with, whether that's ourselves or another person. We can take care of ourselves too, right? Yeah? So we want structure, we want to establish, we want to oversee, we want to protect the relationship. Whatever it is, even if it's with the divine, we want to protect and oversee that relationship, knowing that if we are in relationship with the divine in our minds at this moment, that yes, the divine does hold us in the divine hands, however that resonates with you. However, we do have the authority for ourselves to be protective of and be, to care for the welfare of our relationship with the divine as well. Can that make sense to you? And again, if it's with another person, it's easier to understand. If it's with our inner child, it's very easy to understand. So for this week, we've got all of this love energy and being the, not master as in like master slave, but the master of, our mastery of, like an artisan has mastery of their craft. We have mastery of our love, of the craft of, maybe that's the title of this video, mastery of the craft of love. Lovecraft, craft of love. I'll land on something. So what's next? We have this beautiful pomegranate, which is beautifully associated, I think, as the partner to the Emperor. We have this beautiful pomegranate with a bee there whose body is becoming a gem somewhat like a pomegranate. And the title for this card is Sensuality, right? Sensuality, the element. This deck of oracle cards is divided into suits of elements. Now, this oracle deck has a fire suit, a water suit, an air suit, a, what am I missing? Fire, water, earth suit, and a fifth suit of spirit, of ether. So the suit of this card is fire. Yeah, which again is of beautiful balance with the air card. Now, the air card is beautifully balanced with a lot of fire, giving it rise, helping to lift it up, to energize it. There's a potential of overwhelming it. And this fire is, I think, more of the feminine aspect of fire. We usually think of fire as masculine if we're going to break it down into those things, but this pomegranate, the way the oracle card points to creative and the loving side of sensuality rather than passion, sensuality, makes me want to drift closer to my receptive side, whereas the emperor wanted us to drift closer to our active side. Does that make sense? So we have here creative and loving side that can express itself beautifully if we allow it. Now, the expressive side of our fire, which is a little bit different from our active creative side. It's the loving side of our fire, the soft side of our fire, the beautifully expressive side of our passions and sensuality and feeling. What does that fire feel like? What does that sensuality, that passion feel like? Now, exploring the gentleness of sensuality is also part of this card. Very different from Mars and Aries, right? Sensuality, gentleness, caring deeply for self and others. Now, there's a deep, fiery care for others here as well, which is different from the protective, caring side. This is the supportive, inner caring side, I believe. And the feeling of the excitement of being alive. And to nurture and what we love here as we essentially explore and appreciate and enjoy those things, we nurture them as well. We want to allow space for that love of the thing that we are essentially appreciating to grow, to blossom, to flourish, and to envelop us, to wrap ourselves in it, to express ourselves, and to allow ourselves the luxury of self-care as well. We want both of those things here. Yeah? We want that more, not authoritarian, but that sense of authority and that sense of care and watching out for and being sure all the things are safe and that we are confident in our mastery of what we are doing, as well as we are essentially appreciating and exploring and giving space for the nurturing of a very empress feel, very empress-like attributes. And these being on the side of this lover card, I think, is poignant. This lover card being Gemini is also poignant. It's the bringing together of these two things in love. Asking for compromise. Understanding the benefit of and the evolution that compromise can point us towards. Does that make sense? And also cutting out what is not needed. Because there are probably aspects of both of these cards that are not going to fit into the union of both of them. And we can allow those to pass, and that might be uncomfortable. But not doing this would be so much more uncomfortable, and that's where we are now. That's where our attention can be in this coming week of our intentional lives. And so we're going to move into the next group of 3 cards, which is going to point towards where we are going if we just keep following the path we're on, right? So here those cards are. Friends, what did you think of this set of 3 cards? Did they unsettle you just a little bit? Now remember, this is the direction we are headed if we stay on the course we are already on. And you saw that the central card of this set of 3 was, don't freak out, was death. And it's a beautiful card. I mean, the colors are stunning. This beautiful, beautiful azure blue bee is there on top of a honeycomb that looks like it's breaking apart, right? It almost made me think of the Tower card, actually, when I first saw this. I thought that the honeycomb was breaking apart here, but it's the Death card. And the Death card in this deck points to Scorpio, my ascending sign, just saying, Scorpio, which is another card which is domiciled, in which Mars is domiciled, right? We have the Emperor card with Mars, and then we have Death and Scorpio with Mars. So here we have fixed waters, vital attributes entering our world. So the central message here is a watery message. We're heading from air into water. And air and water are fairly neutral. So the movement from the Lover card into Death is not one of antagonism, it's not one of wonderful benefit, but it is a neutral path. It's one of just keeping the course, if that makes sense. And Death is associated with the Hebrew letter of, in this series of cards, Nun. Like none of your business. This is Nun, which is, interestingly, the Hebrew letter for serpent or fish. And that kind of makes sense when you think of the Thoth Death card from, let me see, just a moment. Am I remembering? Yes, the Thoth Death card has all of the images of Scorpio on it. The eagle, the scorpion, and the fish, or the snake. And so the serpent fish image is a very scorpion thing, and so Nun makes sense. But it's also the faithful one. Now, the serpent is not the serpent of the tempter and getting us into trouble and getting us kicked out of what do we call it? Of paradise. That's the word, of paradise. This is the serpent of faithfulness, the faithful one. Also carrying knowledge, the wise one. The serpent was a wise animal in the past, in the very, very, very ancient, distant past. Now, carrying the knowledge of the old world over the floods of destruction into the new world. So there's the idea of, like, imagine Noah's Ark, yeah, where all of the, well, not all of, but information in the form of animals and Noah's family was put on this ark to travel over the waters of destruction into the new world that would be formed after the destruction, right? That's kind of Nun in a nutshell, in a seashell, if you will. So the rune associated with Nun is Perthro, which kind of looks like an F with, I'm sorry, that's not Perthro. Perthro kind of looks like, oh, never mind. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It's Perthro. And right now, Perthro is the rune for decisions, for mystery, for prophecy. And Scorpio can be a very prophetic sign, right? Could also be uncertainty, secrecy, uncertainty, secrecy, but also occult skills. And Scorpions, they say we have occult skills as well as initiation and fertility. Partnerships, the female kind of knowledge as well, the watery, deep, crystalline, diamond-like knowledge of the female is all here in Perthro and all here in Death. So, according to the author of this deck, the Death card is change of consciousness. It's the releasing from the old patterns of being stuck or ill at ease and being ready to move into the new. So, where are we feeling stuck? The love that we are following on this path is how that release, I believe, is to be effected as we move forward. Yeah, letting go of the past and allowing the growth and the transition and the change to happen. That's the primary message of this card, especially in this spread, I believe. Yeah? Getting ready for a new cycle to begin. So that's the direction that united love card that we begin this week with is moving in the direction of. It's moving in the direction of our evolution, of change, and an evolution of with the powers and with the talents of our prophetic natures. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. So that's where we're going. And the modifier of this card is yet another Major Arcana card, which was the Hierophant, right? And the Hierophant, here we have this wonderful beekeeper. You see the two acolytes here at the bottom, which have the heads of a beehive, or a honeycomb here. And the Hierophant, the beekeeper, is standing above the honeycomb. So the pontificant over the congregation of the hive. Yes? And the Hierophant being Taurus, which is the domicile of Venus, Mars's partner, yeah, which is the domicile of Venus, gives us fixed Earth's vital attributes entering our world, entering our natal charts, entering the question we're asking of the divine, which is that earthiness of relationship, the earthiness of beauty, the earthiness of sensuality, which we just saw in the last grouping of cards, right? That oracle card was sensuality. We've got sensuality with Venus in Taurus here as well. And the Hebrew letter is Vav, which is the male, the masculine, Yod, He, Vav, He of the tetragram, right? The second masculine. But the Vav is imagined as a hook, or maybe even a spear, or even a tent peg, something that sticks something into place, right? You can stick something with a spear, but you can also stick something into place with a tent hook, right? A tent peg. So it's used to secure something or to add something. So we have the Vav of hooking things and securing things. And with the rune, we have Kanas, which is enlightenment. Now, a very Hierophant kind of attribute, enlightenment, visions, revelation, inspiration, and wisdom, that all of that, what we now will often call download from the divine. Also enthusiasm and passion are part of Kanaz. It's like a lantern which beams light out in front of it. Willpower, creativity, and love are here as well in Kanaz. So we have, what did I say? We had the grasping, well, the hooking of things and the adding of things and the securing of things like enlightenment, like visions, like our creativity and love, and initiating those things with our willpower. And the Hierophant in this deck is pointing to things like spiritual wisdom. You see the Hierophant presiding over the congregation, right? The revealer of sacred things, access to the sacred teachings. And teaching those sacred teachings in a more male-masculine way. Whereas the High Priestess has access to secret teachings as well, but reveals them in a more feminine, female way. The Hierophant is the partner in the more active, reaching out, getting the students together, yeah? The structured lessons of those aspects. Tradition, beliefs, organized beliefs of religion even. Counselor, mentor, teacher, those roles are part of the Hierophant as well. And conformity to traditions and ways of thinking, which for some people, those are very negative aspects, but they can also be positive. So what does that mean with the Death card? Well, that change of consciousness that we release from the old and we prepare for the new cycle is a new cycle of wisdom, a new cycle of sacred things being revealed in a very traditional way. maybe a mentor coming into our lives, or our discovering our role as our mentor in our loving relationship. We had that attribute, that aspect of the emperor in the first grouping of cards, right? So that's echoed here in the more spiritual aspect with the Hierophant. So we have this, the change and the letting go and the getting ready for the new and the enlightenment and the rising of consciousness with these divine aspects of tradition and wisdom and the sacred being revealed and being part of that change and that transition. But this isn't a passive course of action, right? Because we are given the reminder of the worker bee. Beautiful card, beautiful colors. And you see the lemniscate at the top of the worker bee, yes? So the worker in this oracle has no elemental attribute. There are 3 cards that have no elemental attributes to them. Yeah, there's the queen, there's the worker, and there's the drone. So all of these 3 have no elements. So there's no elemental interference with this card. The water and the earth of the death card and the Hierophant card with Scorpio and Taurus, they are mutually beneficial. They raise each other up, yes. So the Hierophant's spiritual wisdom, the access to the sacred teachings, the spiritual truths, they are helping to lift up death, which is change, releasing us from the old. Even though we are carrying and learning from the tradition, we're releasing from our own personal old patterns with the assistance of tradition. Does that make sense? And then we have this worker here, which not only cares for the queen of the hive, but also the larva. And we have that reminder that as we do this transformation, we're also doing the work of caring for those around us. We also do the work of cleaning and building the honeycomb and feeding the queen and the young bees and the drones. We're also feeding those around us, perhaps spiritually. We're caring for the well-being, the welfare of those around us. We're doing the work needed to see our evolution through in our loving relationship that we began with. Now we're allowing ourselves to give, to be helpful, to be social, to be collaborative on this journey. And this is the direction that we are moving in if we stay out of the way. If we stay out of the way, and we follow the course of our trajectory, we will be moving in the direction of these changes, and these changes perhaps being instigated and inspired by our tradition, by our connection with spirit, by a teacher from without, or our inhabiting our own role as teacher, which is possible because remember we had that Emperor card just a moment ago. Does that make sense? This is the direction we're moving in. And we're about to look at another possible road that we can choose if we intervene. Are you ready for that? Here we go. You see, if we intervene, if we step in and make another choice, we're heading into a lot of water. Yeah? We started off with the Queen of Cups right there in the center. And on the left of the Queen of Cups, there was the 5 of Cups. You might be thinking, uh-oh, that doesn't sound good. But on the right of that, we had a card called Ascension. But let's start with the Queen, because this is the main idea of where we'd be moving if we make another decision. The Queen of Cups, beautiful card. Can you see the Queen? It's getting a little, my light is starting to get weak. The next time I film this, I'm going to make sure I'll find a way to connect the light to a power source. But you can see this Queen, yes? It's a beautiful Queen. She's got bee wings, and she's got this beautiful dress, and she's standing in front of a beautiful chalice in front of her. And the Queen of Cups is deeply emotional and in touch with her psychic nature, which is perfect balancing out that death card, right? We move into change and death of Scorpio. Well, there's a little bit of a Scorpio nature to the Queen of Cups to me. Although the Queen of Cups, I would think of more as Pisces. The Queen of Cups is I think partially Pisces, but also partially another sign. The court cards are not just one side in the Thoth Tarot. So it's difficult to fully pinpoint which sign each one of the court cards is, unlike the continental Tarot system. But the Queen of Cups is kind of like a Pisces to me. Maybe Cancer, but kind of like a Pisces to me. Deeply emotional and in touch with their psychic nature. They have empathy for others. But they're also easily absorbed into their muses. Yeah, they can lose their own control a little bit. Not like lose control, like they freak out or they go wild or something, but they lose their own their willpower or their movement forward. Now, their will becomes absorbed in the will of their muses. And yet there is a deep intuition here. They can become a reflective surface for whoever they are in relationship with. So there are some positives here, but if we step in, it's not all positive, I don't think. We can start losing ourselves. We could start becoming the mirror for the other instead of holding our own separate self in relationship. Now, what does that move us in the direction of? What is the modifier of that? The modifier of that is the Five of Cups. And the Five of Cups in the Golden Dawn is the Lord of loss in pleasure. So there's so much pleasure that there begins to have a loss. And we can see in this card, there is a Martian Scorpio aspect to this card. But it's a very negative view of Mars in Scorpio. Now we have Mars and Scorpio in the death card, which is positive. It's transformative. It's deeply psychically spiritual. But here, in the traditional way of looking at the Five of Cups, it's the very negative aspect of Mars and Scorpio. It's regrets, it's failure, it's disappointment, it's pessimism, it's loss, it's mourning. And you can see this figure here looking at the cups. It's very Rider-Waite-Smith, right? You've got the three cups that are tipped over, and that's what the person is looking at, and there are two upright cards behind which the person is not paying attention to. And so this card is pointing towards a necessary grief. Devastated, but on the road to recovery. There's a need to process here. So it seems like here, at this point, we got these two water cards side by side. If we step in, if we intervene, if we try to make another choice and go in another direction, we're headed in the direction of losing our ability to move forward in a way. And wallowing a little bit in what is happening to us. Instead of allowing the things to be let go of and pruning away, which we were counseled to do, we're mourning those things. We're feeling devastated. We're on the road to recovery, but we're wallowing in the devastation of what is being lost and what is being let go of, instead of paying attention to the direction we want to be moving in. So that doesn't sound so great for us, right? Except we have this card as the final modifier of this set of three, the Ascension card. And you see that Merkaba, now those pyramids which have been joined to make a Merkaba, and the bee merges with that Merkaba, that sacred geometric form that is related to Ezekiel. And this card is associated with the ether suit. So I think the ether suit supports all of the elements. It brings them all together and supports all of the elements. So this card is in support of the two water cards, I believe. So this is ascension as an enlightened body. This is meditating and contemplating to bring our consciousness to a higher level. And maybe feeling the need for protection so that we are able to reconnect, we are able to be vulnerable enough to fully establish and feel our connection with the divine. We're asked here to imagine connecting the present self with our eternal nature. Yeah, this ascension is possible in the context of the Five of Cups and the Queen of Cups. That opening ourselves so wide that we no longer have the container for our water. And we're absorbed into our muse, and as we are doing that, we feel the disappointment, and we feel the regret, and we feel the mourning for the loss of who we have been. But that can be the instigation for an ascension, for an ascension, period, end of sentence. So this choosing another path is still choosing the path of a transformation. Which one seems best for you? Staying on the course of where we are now and heading into death with the Hierophant, tradition, and the worker bee doing the work, taking care of others? Or are we going to open ourselves and lose ourselves to other, in a sense, and become the mirror, the reflection of the other? And that disappointment of losing self to some extent, but then discovering the ascension after, or through that. It's not an easy choice, is it? Which one makes best sense to you? Let me know in the comments below. We're not done yet, but let me know in the comments below. I'd like to hear from you. What do you think? So friends, here we are. We see where we are. We see two paths of where we're going. We could be going. What if we just follow along? What if we step in? And we step in our stepping in, we lose ourselves. But we ascend. Now let's see what the challenge is. If it's a challenge of something we want to work to accomplish, to raise ourselves to meet that level, or something that's going to be standing in our way. Let's take a look at those cards now. These three cards were the challenges or the obstacles that we might face journeying on either one of the paths that we have chosen. Yeah? And you saw that the central card was the Priestess. Now, I mentioned the Priestess once with the pomegranate and the idea of the Queen of Cups, right? But here we've just got the Priestess as the central card. And let me show you a picture of this beautiful priestess. A very red card for a priestess. Okay, maybe it's a purplish red, you might argue, but still it seems very pinky red to me. But a beautiful image of a native person with bees around, with a bee in front of her. We see the moons there for the priestess, right? And this priestess is pointing us towards the moon, which resides in Cancer, from which mutable water's vital attributes enter our world, enter the question we're asking of the tarot. Now, so we've got the moon in Cancer right here in the priestess. And as it is also associated with Gimel, we have attributes of a camel or a camel rope, a camel lead. It could also be the idea of a benefactor stepping out towards the one who is in need of or could benefit from the benefactor's help. Because the next letter, Dalet, is the letter for the weak, the impoverished. So Gimel is the one who reaches out and offers to Dalet. It's also a homophone for the word meaning to nourish, which is a nice homophone for somebody benefacting towards another person, to nourish them as well. So this is a nourishing card. And Cancers are known for nourishing those around them. It's also associated with the rune Thorisaz, which is a thorn. Also, we can think of the god Thor, right? Thor, Thorisaz, thorn. It's a big hammer. And Thorisaz is the rune of power, of protection, of defense, and overcoming obstacles. Interesting associations for the high priestess. So, this high priestess is not the high priestess of the soft, retiring one who is sitting there in front of her large lake with the veil behind her, gently blowing in the breeze as she contemplates the deep mysteries of the universe. No, this is the priestess of the badass priestess. Yeah? This priestess is, if you don't belong, you're in big trouble. Now this priestess packs a punch. So what is this priestess? Just like Cancer, just like Cancer, that crab does not have those claws for nothing, right? Now the priestess has her hammer of power, which she doesn't use blindly, but it's there at the ready. So what is the priestess pointing us towards? Yeah? Hidden realities that must be acknowledged before the secrets can be revealed. And remember, we had cards that were pointing us towards the ideas of ascension and realization of inner truths, realization of connection to the divine. And here we get that strengthened, that idea strengthened. But there is something that must be acknowledged for us to be able to receive the secrets, to receive the sacred knowledge. We also want to trust our intuition and our inner wisdom with this card, to be able to guide and reveal the right time for what we are to discover. We want to revere the priestess. Now, we don't want to take her for granted. We want to revere the priestess and her method of teaching. The Hierophant's method of teaching and the High Priestess's method of teaching are very different. Now remember, the Hierophant is the one who does the stand in front of the hive and teach the hive and point the way and show the divine. The High Priestess is the one who opens the potential, who shows the darkness within which the secrets are revealed. There's a different way of revealing truths with the High Priestess, and we want to allow our intuition and our inner wisdom to guide us towards that and to revere the methods. Have you ever felt like with the High Priestess, just tell me already, just show me already what's going on? This is not the time to do that. The challenge here, I think, is to revere the process, to respect the process. Know that things not be as they seem now. You might be thinking that, well, this isn't right. This isn't what was supposed to happen. That's because we don't know everything. And so at this point, the challenge is, and I don't think this is an obstacle so much as a challenge to do, the challenge to be, to know that things are not as they seem, may not be as they seem, and to open ourselves to understanding of the truth. Which is different from the opening of the Queen of Cups, which was like a blah opening, right? Opening completely. This is an opening of the door to allow truth to reveal itself to us. And it's a beautiful card. And the moon shows us that there are times for full light, for full revelation, and there are times for darkness. So that's where we're beginning. This is what we are challenged to step up to the plate and accept. The cycles, the knowing that things are not quite as they seem. That doesn't mean that we're looking at an illusion, just that we're not seeing everything. And to open to open to what we are ready to accept. Because the High Priestess is not going to give us everything. The High Priestess is going to reveal to us that which we are ready to accept. Just like the moon doesn't shine all of the light of the sun on us. The moon parses out the sunlight in portions that we are ready to handle. That's what this High Priestess is doing for us now. And this high priestess is paired with the Wheel of Fortune. And the Wheel of Fortune, this is a very Rider-Waite-Smith kind of Wheel of Fortune. Do you see the snake going down on this side? You see the bee at the top, the bee at the bottom? Beautiful colors in this card. And the Wheel of Fortune points to Jupiter, which resides in both Sagittarius and Pisces, from which mutable fire and water's vital attributes enter the world. So remember, this card is here to modify, to add information to the central card. And the information that this card is adding to, the adjectives that this card is offering to this card, are both fire and water, right? And so looking at this card, we can think, well, if it's a fire card, that is elementally in opposition to the High Priestess. But then if it's Jupiter in Pisces, that's elementally the same as the moon, as the elements for the High Priestess card. So here in the wheel, we've got cycles, right? On one part of the cycle, we're in opposition to the High Priestess. On the other side of the cycle, we're right in line with the Priestess. And which Hebrew letter is this associated with? Well, it's associated with Kaf, now, which kind of looks like this. It could refer to the ideas of being ancient. It could be the bend and curve of the shape of the palm. It could also be to tame and subdue, and the need to bend ourselves in modesty and accept others. So we have the hand out there to act in the world, and we also have the body ready to bend and accept modestly those who appear before us. The grasper and the acceptor. Sagittarius and Pisces. So I think we have a choice in this card. We also have Isaz, which is like a line pointing up. There's not even a point, it's just a line, a vertical line. And it refers to ice, it refers to rest and origins and willpower and concentration. Willpower, concentration, but also standstill, waiting, pausing. So I think this Isaz rune here is pointing to the fulcrum of the lever, which could either swing towards Jupiter in Sagittarius or Jupiter in Pisces. Which end of the elemental scale are we going to go towards? Are we going to go towards an opposition to the priestess with the fire and gimme, 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 let's go forward? Or are we going to move in the direction of Pisces with opening and allowing and accepting and receiving and perceiving? Not perceiving here, but perceiving here. Yeah? So the Wheel of Fortune for this deck is, of course, we've got good luck, we've got karma, we have life cycles, we have expansion, but we also have a turning point. And maybe we're turning from the fire to the water here. We're moving into the water of Pisces and the water of the Two of Cups and the water of the cards that were supporting. Because remember, sorry, I just knocked something on the floor. I'm sorry. Remember, I was just looking for my other cards. We had two fires flanking air in the central message, right? We had sensuality, which was fire, and the emperor, which was fire. So maybe the challenge is to move from that beginning into water here with this card. And we reach that turning point here with the Wheel of Fortune, and that's the challenge, to move into that which will support the priestess. And that which will also support the priestess is this card, the mana card. And let me see if I can, yes, we see a bee here kind of looks like it's ready to fall to me, but that's not what's going on. The bee has gotten a hold of some manna. Do you know what manna is? Manna is the bread, the divine bread that was given to the Israelites when they were lost in the desert. And manna from heaven fell to fill the bellies of the lost Israelites. So it's spiritual food. It's food to nourish the body and the spirit. And so it naturally belongs in the suit of ether, right? So it supports all of the elements. So this will also support the water of the moon in Cancer and the water of Jupiter in Pisces. And it's spiritual nourishment that brings illumination. Remember, we are moving towards ascension and illumination in both paths, I believe. But the challenge here is whichever path we decide to choose, we are moving in the direction of reality being revealed, that which is hidden being revealed, moving in the direction of water, of emotion, of intuition, and our own illumination, our own enlightenment. But we also might discover that there is some fatigue here as well. And if there is fatigue, it is time to reevaluate the source of our spiritual nourishment. Perhaps we aren't opening ourselves enough to receive the fullness of the manna that is being offered to us. And the creator of this deck says that we might want to explore several different sources of our spiritual nourishment, of our spiritual fulfillment, spiritual nourishment. There's another word that wants to come and it's not coming fully. But yeah, we might find other ways of feeding ourselves spiritually. And when we do feel that sense of satiety, maybe then we can choose which practice, which way of being is the most suitable for us. So we want to commit to a physical and spiritual fitness. We want to keep our body healthy, keep the temple clean, and keep the spirit within that temple also fit, active, exercised, awake, alert, so that we're ready for the High Priestess to open up the wealth of knowledge that she has available to give us, that we can ascend and receive even more from the High Priestess, right? Does that make sense? This set of cards is a wonderful challenge, I think. Maybe not an easy one for some of us, but a wonderful challenge to open ourselves and be ready, be primed for the reception. And know that it may not look like we're going to receive, but if we're ready, we will. We're just here at that moment of Esau's, of pause and waiting for that tip into Jupiter in Pisces. And there we can fill ourselves. And perhaps in this pause, we can explore options of ways that we can nourish ourselves spiritually as well. Get a couple of different kinds of spiritual exercise under our belts. Does that make sense? That will help for our ascension in whichever path we decide to move in from where we are now, in our journey of love. Now, we're not left out here in the cold. We have a little bit of help from the divine. So let's take a look at those three cards right now. The divine help, you see, comes in a very watery form, does it not? Yeah, you saw at the center, we had the Two of Cups. And then on the left, modifying the Two of Cups, we had yet another Death card. Now we had the Death card up there in the path we would naturally be headed towards if we just stay out of our own way. And the divine is here offering more death. But in the sense that we were talking about, yeah? Not this kind of death, but death of transformation, death of change. And then on the other side, we had breakthrough, which was an interesting, match, balance, with the Ascension card in the upper left-hand corner, the path that we could be on if we make another choice. And so, here we are, the assistance from the divine, the assistance from spirit, assistance from God, from Allah, from Brahman, from the divine feminine, from Gaia, from the heavenly, from the great spirit, whatever we want, the universe, source, consciousness, whatever we want to call all of that. These are the cards of what the assistance that is available for us, if we're ready for it, if we accept it. It's not going to be forced on us. And we begin with this lovely, lovely Two of Cups card. You see that the cups are, there's one above pointed down, there's one below pointed up. There are two bees meeting in the center between those two cups, and we can imagine the fluid of the cups pouring both from top to bottom and then returning from bottom to top. We can imagine kind of a temperance card with the fluid flowing between the cups. And this Two of Cups card points to Venus in Cancer. So we've got another water sign here, Cancer, right? And I'm learning the system. I'm starting to learn the system. Yeah, Venus in Cancer, to my brain, makes very little sense. Yeah? Planets that naturally belong in tarot to Cancer, to me, are the Moon, and Mars, and Saturn. No, the Moon, Mars, and what am I doing? Jupiter. Pisces, yeah? The three houses of Cancer would be Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And those planets would be the Moon, Mars, and Jupiter. So what's Venus doing here? Well, that's the Golden Dawn method. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're playing with here. But one interesting thing is that Venus is a planet of love, right? The Moon is receptive and reflective, and Jupiter is expansive. So here, the Moon receives and reflects that love, and Jupiter expands it. I mean, now why Jupiter? Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So if we think of these kinds of associations, it can kind of make sense. But still, we have Venus in Cancer, which is the natural domicile of the Moon, from which cardinal water's vital attributes should be entering our world, with a little bit of a Venus touch, flair, I guess. We'll see, sorry, I was just attacked by a fly. So we've got this idea of the love, the beauty, entering in, being received and reflected by the Moon, and also expanded by Jupiter, which is exalted in Cancer. And so we get the idea of nurturing, being protective and cautious, but fertile. Yeah? Sensitivity and impressionability could make relationships like a roller coaster in this card. So the Two of Cups is wonderful. It's a bonding, there's sensitivity, and we could be impressed, feel an impression from somebody, but it's not like this, it could be like this, right? According to Crowley from the deck, that this, I believe, is based on, this is the card of love directed by will. Because for everything is under will, right? The will power, the power of will. So it's love directed by will. It's a loving relationship formed, mutual respect and reciprocity. Partnerships, friendships are also possible here, and other bonds of the soul. There's a union of poles here. Do you see the cups up on top and the bottom, right? Union of poles or directions of spectrum like yin-yang, hot-cold, active, receptive, male-female, whatever, those poles, whatever that spectrum we want to consider. This is the union of those directions of the spectrum. There's also a possibility of the mingling of fluids here, to incarnate a soul. You know what I mean? Now that actual physical fluid mingling that creates a living being could be indicated here as well. So we've got all of that. We've got the love, we've got the sensitivity, we've got the sexuality indicated here, but we also have partnerships and friendships. We have loving relationships, connections of the soul. And that is modified by death, which we already talked about. Yeah, Mars in Scorpio, so we've got fixed waters, vital attributes entering our world. We have Noon, the faithful one, carrying knowledge over destruction to the new existence. We have Perthro, which is, a prophecy, occult skills, initiation, fertility, partnerships. The feminine way, or the receptive way, or the holistic way of thinking. So we've got rebirth, regenerative powers here. We have endings and change. We have transformations and transmutations and transitions, all those trans things. And letting go of the physical body to return to self. That could be the actual death process, but I don't think we're really talking about death here. We're talking about restoring, regenerating, transforming the loving relationships that we have. Those soul unions here are being called for transformation and transmutation into something else. Right? That's the divine gift being offered to us. It's the love that is created by death. Or the death that is created by love, I should say. That's it. The death created by love. Which is where we began this reading in a sense. This is where we are now, and we're being offered more of that by the divine. Why are we offered that by the divine? What's going on here? What's going on here is breakthrough. And this breakthrough card is in the suit of air. And air and water are not enemies. They're not particularly best buddies either. They're neutral. So the air is here to walk side by side with the water. It's here to not necessarily uplift, but to enjoy the presence of. Yeah? So the Two of Cups with death is offering us a chance for, I believe, of breakthrough, of sudden change that might be messy. Recalling that Five of Cups card in the upper left-hand corner, right? It might be messy. And we might ask for time to process. But we can clean it up later. We don't have to process it all now. Yeah? This is a feeling experience that can be a leap of consciousness or growth. Again, pointing towards ascension. But we also had a little bit of growth. Let me see. Now, we had some growth with the Hierophant in the upper right hand. We'll naturally get to growth one way or the other. So are we going to go the way of death, of transformation with tradition and the Hierophant? Are we going to go the way of opening up and allowing it all to happen in the way of the Queen of Cups, which would feel that disappointment, but will arrive at ascension? So we're on the verge of a breakthrough. That's what the divine is here to remind us of. So don't stop growing now. Whichever path we choose, don't stop growing now. Stay the course. Whether we choose the course of following, and it's a choice. Staying on the path that we're on now is not a non-choice. It is a choice. And we could make another choice to just stop where we are, and that's what the divine is here, reminding us of. Don't stop going now. Stay the course. The breakthrough will break through the mirror, and the truth will be revealed. That's the divine gift. Yeah? Through death, the truth will be revealed. And it'll be messy, and we can clean it up later. Allow the messiness to be as it is now. Because right now we want to focus on the breakthrough. in the loving relationship that we are focusing on, whatever you chose to focus on at the beginning of this video, that's where we're going, right? A little bit like a pick a card thing where all the cards point to whichever thing you thought about right at the beginning when I asked you what kind of loving relationship is calling towards you, is arising in your sphere of awareness. That's what we're talking about, right? We're headed in the direction of a love breakthrough. That's a wonderful thing, and yeah, messy. It'll be messy. But there's ascension here. There's breakthrough here. There's transformation here as well. We've had a lot of transformation indicated, but also a lot of wisdom in many aspects. Yeah, we had the Hierophant and the High Priestess here. I think this is a wonderful reading. What do you think? Are you as excited about this as I am? I hope so. If so, let me know in the comments below. If this does not make sense to you, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And friends, if you are still here, hit that thumbs up button so that YouTube knows that you and other people might get something out of this. It'll help YouTube spread the channel around the YouTube-verse, yeah? And subscribe if you haven't subscribed, because that helps the channel. And if you hit the alarm bell, you'll get notifications of when I upload videos. My schedule is a little bit off, not off in the sense of wrong, but unusual these days, and having an alarm might help you a little bit. Okay? Okay. So friends, if you want a reading from me, my email address is below. thehangedmaninthemoon@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, we'll get you a reading. Does that sound good? I hope it sounds good. So friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.